Leonard Bernstein, Betty Comden, Adolph Green, and Jerome Robbins' musical Valentine to New York City, On the Town, has been revived by the Public Theater as part of the New York City Bicentennial celebration. Directed by the gifted George Wolfe, On the Town follows the exploits of three innocent sailors on a 24-hour shore leave in New York City, just before they ship off to war. Racing from the Brooklyn Navy Yard to Times Square to Coney Island, the sailors meet two independent New York women, a brassy cabbie and a tipsy anthropologist, who join them in their search for the elusive subway poster girl, Miss Turnstiles. Robert, On the Town really is a Valentine for the city, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just in the song New York, New York, I think it sort of sums up this whole freneticism and passion about the city of New York, doesn't it?
Yeah, it totally matches the city itself, you know, and it's the best place to perform this show because of that. I think the show captures the electricity, the excitement, the speed, and the heart of New York City.
And if there were any servicemen that were going to attend this show, they identify readily with you. Frenetic, girl-crazy sailor.
How do you know that?
Because I was in the military.
All right. Well, I got to tell you
I know what it's like to be on shore leave.
Well, I got to tell you something, because opening night, we had the first 4 rows with servicemen from the Navy. And they came to the party afterwards, and they came to me and said, "Oh, like, Ozzy, yeah, come here. We're not about, you know, looking at museums and this. It's babes, you know."
That's exactly what it's like. I mean, you're sort of, it's all this energy that's been pent up for this period of time, and you have to force a whole lifetime in 24 hours. I mean, that's really what the show's about from the sailor's point of view.
Yeah, I mean, because my father, Salvatore, and my brother Joe, both served in the Navy, and my father was in the Korean War. And so he was closer to that, you know, that time of, you know, the bombings, and, you know, when it seemed like it was a serious situation. And he would tell me, you know, it was very poignant to him when we were just about to, at the end of the show, when we boarded the ship again, that he said it just brought a tear to his eye, because you never knew if you were going to make it back or not, you know, and it hit home to him. And he said, you know, it's right, you know, the 24 hours, you know, you don't really have time to think. You just go and you live for that moment. And you
don't sleep.
And you don't sleep.
I sit and listen to a symphony. Why can't I just see the music's grand?
How does it feel to be doing the role that Adolph Green had done?
It's daunting at times, but it's also great to have his support, because that's what they have been, nothing but supportive. And it's great for them to see this, you know, that it's third time around. I mean, I know that the show will never be the same like it was back in 1944 for them. Ironically, though, you know, now that we're, you know, having problems in the Gulf, you know, I'm starting to think to myself, like, oh my God, you know, I give myself hypothetical situations now, like if I were of age, which I'm not, to be drafted by just a couple of years. You know, you know, God forbid if, you know, I was called to service, I wouldn't know what to do. I'd freak out. And yes, I would live every moment in such fun.
By the end of Carried Away, I have a real difficult time figuring out who belongs in that case, whether it's the prehistoric humans or whether it's you and Claire. I mean, and I'm sure in this little ritualistic dance around the fire, that's what Wolfe was looking for, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, just total zaniness, you know. And she certainly gives me a run for my money. You know, Sarah Knowlton is wonderful. She's great to work with. We've discovered things that, you know, since the park, I mean, which has been great for me, that I have been able to take it from that part of the park, you know, to another level. And Sarah had just fit in perfectly, and made the number, you know, that much more zanier.
Girl, I must protect her. The villain don't respect her. I leap to her defense and punch a hole right through the screen. Carried away, I get carried, just carried away.
what's also different about this character and Hildy is that the women are the sexual aggressors, and this came out only a couple of years after Oklahoma, I think, so at the time it was rather scandalous, and it's great fun, you know, to kind of have more the boy part and be able to initiate and pursue, as opposed to being this kind of shrinking.
Well, there's definitely two sides to her.
At least.
And she abandons security, because obviously Judge Bridgeworth's going to give her the kind of money she needs for all her writing and her novels and investigations, and she just clothes. That's very important. She just throws that asunder, doesn't she?
For the sake of
a 24-hour romance.
For the sake of a 24-hour romance, but I like to think that there was some kind of an intervention on behalf of her family and the whole society world that she was involved with, that they said, okay, you have to settle down now because you're embarrassing all of us, and that there is a real repressive force off stage that you don't really see beyond the first scene, and not even much with Pitkin. I kind of look at him as the adult, and Ozzie and I are the kids.
It's interesting that this could almost be a dream of the three men, because they seem to make a wish and get what they want.
Yeah, and that's what I love about the scene, is it's two people kind of thinking they have to be something else, but once they drop the masks, they go, oh, I'm in love with you, once they stop acting like somebody else.
Baby, without fear, baby, can't you see? Baby, it's all free. You got he, you got she, you got we.
Have you ever noticed that when you're heartbroken and you go into a club, it doesn't matter where you go, when you hear a ballad, you know it's about you and it's a sad one? I think that's a neat twist, how that continues to carry over from club to club. You can't run away from your troubles, can you?
No.
You have to face them head on.
Absolutely.
Is that the message here, maybe?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. Maybe. I think, you know, Gaby doesn't have all that much dialogue in the second act, so it's also a way of keeping his story going, you know, because that's the story, the plot, as far as it goes, really does center around him. So it's a clever way to keep that going.
There's sort of a different kind of clubbing around that goes on in the first act, but then there's a more extensive version of it in the second act, isn't there?
Oh yeah, well, it's non-stop in the second act. I mean, and as we get on with each club, you know, Claire gets drunker. Yeah. Is that right? Drunker? Is that such a word?
I think tipsier.
Tipsier.
Yeah.
And I get tired, but that will not stop me from spending every moment with her.
No. The momentum builds wonderfully throughout the piece, and you sort of go on this journey. Those last hours, somehow that last 6 hours becomes 3 days in a way.
Well, you say journey, and that's exactly right, you know, for both Claire and I, and me more consciously, because I've decided to make it so that Ozzie, being this man of just loving life and having fun and not letting a moment go by, and meeting this incredible woman that, you know, he didn't think he would ever really meet, you know, this glamorous beauty. And just all this energy just flying, you know, back and forth between us, that all of a sudden realization hits, and that all slows down towards the end of the show, especially during some other time when she says a line in the song, you know, about love, referring to me. And I realized, oh my God, you know, that's what it is, and I've never felt that kind of love, and it was so deep and intense with such a short amount of time.
We'll catch up some other time.
As many people who have seen this show over the years must ask this question: what happens?
Oh, they all die. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I mean, I have like, you can kind of speculate. I don't really think of their lives going on after the last moment. Maybe that's awful. I mean, in some ways, I feel like maybe Claire sells out and goes back to her society and goes, oh, I've really got to see my hairdresser twice a week. I can't know.
New York, New York, it's a hell of a town.
But you're quite a dancer. And early on, you got that at Adelphi, is that true?
Yeah, I went to Adelphi University, and my director, Norman Walker, who is now my mentor, trained me well, trained me hard, and I had come from another background.
A jockey?
Yeah, I used to race horses when I was 16 years old. And I gave up racing when I was 18 because I just kept getting bigger by the minute. And
the horses were getting smaller.
And the horses were getting smaller, and he was saying, please, the weight! You know? So I started dancing at 20 years old, but I continued to work at the track as an exercise rider. And when I started dancing, it was funny because, you know, the racetrack is a different world. I can't exactly tell the guys, you know, at the track, you know, hey, I'm wearing tights.
You didn't want to wear them the first time.
How did you know that?
Because I know all these things.
Oh, God.
What's it like to work with a legend like George Wolfe?
In rehearsal hall, he's a complete goofball, and maybe he's not always. Maybe, I suspect that directors kind of change their persona depending on what the material's demanding of them. But he's a goof. He's a complete goof. And so it was just fun. It was just fun the whole time, making him laugh, you know, working on, it was just fun, just pure fun. So it was an honor, and you know, when I read stuff about him that talks about him in this legendary way, I appreciate it, but I don't really recognize the person they're talking about as the person that I worked with, because that public persona and the workman and the craftsperson are two very different things, I think. And that private work persona that he has is just completely fun and generous and childish in spirit in the best way, and joyful and great. So.
Our kudos to an exuberant On the Town and to one of the greatest actresses of our time, Uta Hagen. Thank you for joining us on National Arts on Broadway. We'll see you next time.